All right.
Is that?
Michael, you there?
Oh, yes, I am here.
Hey, you're on with Don and Matt.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, I really appreciate you all having me on. And just want to say that congratulations for hitting 1,000 shows.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And so, well, I just wanted to ask you, I guess, a couple of preliminary things, and then I can get into my point. And I will try to make it quick. And the last couple callers didn't really. But so I want to ask you, do you believe that there is intelligent life out there or on this planet? Is there any intelligent life?
Is there any intelligent? Yes, I am intelligent life. So
okay, so you believe humans are intelligent life?
Yep.
Why do you believe that?
We're life and we have intelligence.
Because we're the ones that define what life is and what's intelligent, and we fit those definitions.
How do you define intelligence?
Well, so this is one of those fun things where you want to try to make sure that you're not defining it by pointing to the exact thing that it is. But for all labels, they're descriptions of observations. And intelligence, at least to some extent, encompasses the capacity to make observations, process those observations, and reflect on those.
I see. So you're saying that the intelligence of humans is based on our ability to process information and think about it, make decisions, do things based on that information that we are processing?
That is a part of it. That doesn't mean that the fact that something can process information is in fact intelligent in the same sense. It's whether we have different, and there's a lot of discussions and debates about the difference between like sapient and sentient and things like that, because we try to narrow down the different categories of this. But rudimentary intelligence, I think, would essentially get down to that observing, processing, reflecting on, decision-making sort of stuff. That doesn't mean that there aren't more robust and less robust versions of intelligence. For example, I think cats have intelligence. They certainly can do it to the same extent. You could make an argument that a computer, I mean, we're working towards potentially some sort of what we'd call artificial intelligence, but I play against chess computers, and certainly they're getting some input, evaluating things, and making decisions. So that probably counts as some version of intelligence. It's just not the same as ours.
Okay. And so one more little preliminary thing. I'm almost to my point, I swear. I'm sure there's probably other callers, so I don't want to hold up too much. So would you say that the things that humans build and design, you know, just pick anything, a house, a car, whatever, computers, like you were saying, is that indicative of an intelligence?
Well, the thing on its own isn't. The thing in and of itself isn't necessarily.
That it was created by intelligence.
Well, see, now that's the thing. We know whether Can I finish?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
We identify whether or not something was intentionally constructed by an intelligence by contrasting the things that occur naturally without guidance with those things that do. So I know that this building was designed and built by humans because all of the evidence for this particular building and for everything that is like that supports the notion of being designed and built by intelligence. And there is no supporting evidence that a building like this is just going to spring up through natural processes on its own.
I see. But you can look at the building and see elements of design, like you were saying, is not found in nature, and that's what
we only
can tell.
We only see elements of design because we've demonstrated that these things are in fact designed, and we have not demonstrated that they could occur naturally.
I see. looking at nature, I'll get to my point now. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. So looking at nature, we can see that there is a level of complexity that
complexity isn't design.
Cannot design.
No. You are simply wrong. So first of all, complexity is not a hallmark of design. Simplicity is. The better the design, the simpler it is.
Oh, really?
But, yes.
Really, you think so?
I not only. Well, are you laughing? Are you laughing?
It's either way.
Are you laughing?
It's simple or complex. It doesn't mean that it is or it isn't.
Correct. Thank you. You just made my point for me. Complexity is not indicative of design. You cannot look at you cannot look at something. I know. I didn't say you made your point. I said you made my point.
Oh, I see.
You cannot look at something and say, "Hey, this is really complex. It must have been designed." That's a fallacy.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. That wasn't necessarily my point.
I bet you $1 it was.
Okay, I'll come visit you. I'll get that $1. But
you started by saying you can look at something in nature and see that it's complex, and then you said it is too complex to have been designed naturally. So that was your point, because.
Well, I didn't say designed naturally. You didn't let me finish. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Because what?
You did say that it couldn't occur naturally. That's the point I interrupted you.
Well, no, what I was saying is that when you look at something in nature, what I was going to say is that it's more complex than anything humans can design, right?
No,
would you agree?
No. You actually said natural, but we'll go with this.
Okay.
You look at something in nature. You look at something in nature, and you find that it's more complex than what humans can design. First of all,
yes.
I don't necessarily know that that's true, because there's a difference between what humans have. Can I finish the sentence?
100,000.
Jesus, if you'd let me finish the sentence, you would have already had your answer and not look like a jackass.
Oh, okay.
There's a difference between what humans can, a level of complexity that humans can achieve, versus what humans have achieved. There's no demonstration, for example, that it is impossible for human beings to design life from scratch. The fact that we haven't done it doesn't mean that that is not possible.
Okay, but we could do it. There's a possibility. Right?
I don't know whether or not it's possible. The point is, you would have to demonstrate that it is impossible in order to make your point.
Okay, so that is true, and I do want to avoid that type of yes or no type of questioning and answering. But like, for example, like what I'm saying is that like if you take a car, for example, open up the hood of a car, it's got an engine, it's got all of the things that a car has, right? So you can look inside a cell and you can see that there are also things like motors which spin at hundreds of thousands of RPMs. And
actually, it's RPM. It's RPM, not RPMs, to be pedantic, and it's also.
Good job.
I think you might be a little off on the actual RPM, but.
Oh, really? It's at least 100,000. I guarantee you that.
Fine, whatever. Doesn't matter. The issue is here that you're making an argument.
It does matter.
No, it doesn't. No, shut up. You're making an argument by analogy. You're saying we can recognize engines, and here's something in the cell that looks like an engine. An engine is designed, therefore this thing we look at in the cell that looks like an engine is more likely to have been designed. That is a flawed argument.
We can go down the list of innumerable things in nature.
Give us your best one.
I love innumerable lists. Let's get started on an innumerable list.
Let's do it. Okay. Hey, so check it out.
Got lots of shit in your bucket. Let's give us the fanciest turd you got.
Okay, so check it out. So you've got a tree. It makes an apple. The apple falls. It's sweet. Animals like to eat it. It's palatable to them. They eat it. Their system takes all the nutrients from that thing that's sweet, and they wanted to eat it, and it breaks all of it down except the seed. And it, as you were saying, passes the turd. The seed is in the turd, and that turd is actually fertilizer for the tree to grow.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it?
It came about by
must be Jesus.
Without any design. You think it happened to happen that way?
I see. No, Michael. I see no evidence that it requires an intelligent designer, nor have I seen evidence that it actually is done by an intelligent designer.
So you think
And nobody here is saying that it appeared by magic.
If it was done by a designer, then you demonstrate the designer and you demonstrate the design. But what you're doing is saying, look at this. It just seems like you're saying, look at this. It just seems so amazing that it couldn't have happened by natural processes. Therefore, there was a designer. That's what you're saying.
It's an argument from ignorance again.
Ah, I see. Well, I mean, that's part of what I'm saying.
Demonstrate the designer. Why is this so hard?
Why not just stand by your convictions? You are arguing that because something happens in nature that seems amazing and looks designed to you, that the most reasonable conclusion the most reasonable conclusion is that there's a designer, and yet you are failing to acknowledge that these are all still natural processes we're talking about, and that these are the sorts of things that result when you have changes over time.
Yes, I will agree to that.
Okay. So
I'm not saying there's not changes over time. That's clear.
Well, you're essentially arguing those changes over time, that it's unreasonable to conclude that they could lead with this particular tree makes fruit and then poops out a seed through an animal. You think that can't happen through natural processes over time?
Well, here's the thing. Of course, I can never say for sure because I didn't exist billions of years ago when whatever universe was created.
And neither one of us need to be saying anything for sure. I don't think you can be certain about anything. I'm talking about,
I agree.
Here's a process that happens in nature. We're looking at potential explanations. Let's say, for example, that we have no natural explanation. That still doesn't mean that we're justified in thinking there's a supernatural one, a la the call earlier. But in this case, we actually have natural explanations because this is a natural process. And so the standard scientific model merely acknowledges, given the age of the universe and the age of the Earth and what we know from archaeology and from studying DNA in the cells and other stuff, that this appears to be a natural process occurring over time. And what those people who are advocating for a designer are doing is one of a couple different things. They're either saying nature's not sufficient enough on its own to explain this, therefore there must have been a designer. But they can't demonstrate that nature isn't sufficient, or they haven't demonstrated that nature isn't sufficient, they just assert it. Or they're saying, yes, it's a natural process, but we believe that there was a designer who tampered with that process or started that process off. And they don't demonstrate that either. They just say this is what we're convinced of.
Right. Well, you know, I definitely want to come from a place of we can't conclusively 100% assert anything because as humans, our senses are so limited, right? So that is important to recognize, and I'm really glad you brought that up. That's
God
why
exists,
I'm talking in terms of, you know, seeing things in nature and seeing how it's better designed than anything humans have ever designed.
You know, we have more evidence for evolution than we have for almost anything.
I'm not saying
no, it's not better designed. If I could design a better human being in a heartbeat by not making it possible for me to choke by having me breathe and drink out of the same orifice.
Okay. Well, go ahead and do that then.
I just did. I didn't say I could make one from scratch. I didn't say I can construct human evolution. But if I were in this position of a designer and you're talking about how much better it is than something humans could have designed, I can come up with a design that's better. I could make it so that the fun factory and the waste disposal are not the same thing.
Okay, I'm talking about a bigger scale. I mean, I'm not even talking about nature on this planet.
I don't give a shit about the scale, Michael. The fact is, I just offered a rebuttal to your assertion, and then now you're doing a deflection.
Factory, like that's not real design. I mean, not on the level of nature of the universe. That's like our little bitty scale of let's make a place, you know, where you can go have fun in a place that processes sewage. Like nature has. Did you really miss
the point that I was talking about genitals and the fact that that's the fun factory I'm talking about, where waste also comes out?
I totally missed that.
Yeah. Welcome back to biology. And here, just go look up the laryngeal nerve on a giraffe. Tell me that's good design. Yeah. Well, all you were talking about was that the things in nature are better designed than anything humans could design. And I just proved you wrong by being a human who just designed something that is superior. That doesn't mean that I can bring it up.
I'm not saying things in nature are better designed. I'm saying the entirety The fact that it is self-sufficient, the fact that
It's
life
not. We're going to
cannot
have heat
stop on
death.
this
I could
planet.
design a universe that's not going to suffer heat death, where we're going to go on forever. I could design. I could
You
design
can't
one.
develop a universe.
I
Go
could
ahead.
if I was a god, right?
Can we concede that your Apple
God
analogy didn't work out? And that was the best
hang
one?
hang on.
we're talking about God now? Oh.
Isn't there heaven? Do you think there's a heaven?
That's a whole other conversation.
No, it's not. It's the question I'm asking you right now. Do you think
really is.
Do you think there's a heaven?
I'll tell you this. I don't know what happens after we die in this body, but I think something happens. One of those possibilities
This is just wild.
going to a nicer place. One of those possibilities could be going to a worser place.
Nice defense mechanism to avoid the obvious
defense
flaw in
mechanism.
your
I'm telling you what I believe.
Is it possible for this intelligent designer that you believe exists to design a place that is better than this universe?
Is it possible? Of course.
Okay, that's the point.
Okay, so I don't understand what you proved.
Okay, this universe you think is better than anything humans could design. And yet you and I can both agree on a design that would be better, right?
Well, now you're challenging.
Is that a yes or a no?
Levels of infinity. There's an infinity, but there's a bigger infinity. Like, you know,
I don't have patience in infinity, so can we agree that you and I could design a place that is better than this universe?
Could I design? Or
Is there nothing? Oh my God, Michael, this is so frustrating.
I couldn't design.
Stop.
Of course I can't
Stop.
design a universe. What are you talking about?
Okay. Is there anything about the universe that you think could be better?
Well, here's the thing.
God damn.
My knowledge of the universe is so limited, even on this world.
Then go somewhere else and talk to somebody else about it then, because I absolutely think there are things in the universe that could be improved upon. That is designing. Now, I may be wrong about what's possible given the current constraints of the universe, but if we're looking at this as a designer, someone capable of designing a universe could design something better. He acknowledged this, that God could have designed something better. And we can also say, Don, what would you like to, what do you think could improve about the universe?
I'll get a long list.
Just one thing. What could be improved about the universe?
I don't know. Maybe a different president.
Although, to be fair, that's about how we work in it, not so much about it. Let's just talk about, you know.
Oh, I don't know. How about you don't have to suffer so much before you die? How about that?
Or you could live twice as long.
Sounds great to me. I like it.
Maybe we remove skin cancer. We keep all the other cancers. We keep all the other problems. We just get rid of skin cancer.
I'm all for that. That's just fine.
Maybe we design humans so that you breathe and drink and eat out of different holes. Who knows? There could be some improvements. Oh, then you couldn't talk because you need to push the air through. Look how amazing.
It seems to me like
God
you're playing the role of the tester again and saying, oh, well, you know, this thing needs a little work. It needs a little improvement.
Yeah, the incredible frustration
send it
here. The incredible frustration here is that if there is design, you have to demonstrate design. You don't get to just infer design because, oh, this looks complicated, or, oh, I can't come up with anything better, or, oh, I don't have a natural explanation. All of those are, in fact, fallacies. And this is probably, and I probably should have done it this way. It's a curious thing to have been a fundamentalist Christian for some 25 plus years and to wake up every day in a world full of people who believe the things that I used to believe. And to seemingly be incapable of making progress with at least some of them, although there are plenty of people, there's probably people sitting on the other side of the glass who used to be believers, and in part because of the show. What does that say about the designer that he believes in? That he goes to all the trouble to design something that Michael thinks is obvious. It reminds me of Douglas Adams and the Babelfish thing, that it ended up being proof of God because it was so preposterous that it just needed to be. If your God can reveal himself to you by obviously designing the things that humans can't, then why can't he do a Damascus Road experience for everybody and satisfy previous callers' claims? Why is it that Don and I have to sit here for years
week in and week out,
answering the same questions, right, having the same arguments, and all we're really saying is, please present an evidence-supported argument for your claim. And instead what we get is...
no lies and deception, no logical fallacies, and no emotional manipulation.
Yeah. Cut out the fallacies, construct a valid syllogism, put sound evidence in the propositions, and I have to accept the conclusion. I have to. Mm-hmm. It's unavoidable. Now, if I can figure this out, why can't your God? If you can figure out that God designed a tree, and you think that I could figure that out too if I just listened to you, then why doesn't God just come down and say, yep, he's right, I designed that tree. I designed all this. I designed this. I designed that.
And what a better way to promote Christianity than have atheists come on and be converted.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Granted, we don't have the most popular show in the world, but it's pretty popular. And by the way, I'm friends with some people who are far more popular. Ricky Gervais is a fan of the show. Why not reveal yourself to Ricky? He's done a great job. I saw him argue against God on Colbert one time. Certainly because then nobody would believe him. Yeah, here's the thing, and here's one of the reasons that atheists recognize the appeal of these discussions here is that if a God ever revealed himself to me, I would acknowledge it and I would tell people. But the problem is, if that were to happen, that means one of two things. Either I've become convinced of something that I can't demonstrate to anyone else, which puts me in the same boat as the callers. If that's the case, I don't think I could be convinced, because independent verification and relying on reasonableness to make a case for something is a required element of what would convince me. So then I'd have to fall into the second category, which means that God has revealed himself to me in such a way that it not only would satisfy my standards of what it would take to convince me, but I would be able to relay that in a way where all of my atheist skeptic friends would likely reach the same conclusion. We know that's never happened, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Yep.
Never. If there was ever someone who was presented a sound, skeptical, valid argument supported by evidence, we wouldn't be here, and yet we are. And so what does that say about your God, that he's created a scenario, intelligently designed a scenario in which for the next 20 years, people are going to keep calling this show to say the same thing that they said for the 20 years previous. And we're going to point out fallacies, and we're going to point out how you can't reach that conclusion from there, because one chunk of people understand logic and reason and skepticism and critical thinking, and the others don't. And that's not just an insulting, that's not saying I'm smarter than you or my IQ's higher. That's just a fact. I understand skepticism, critical thinking, standards of evidence, burden of proof, how to make an argument, how to spot the flaws in an argument, and the people who are presenting evidence for God. And it doesn't matter if they're a caller to this show, or Ray Comfort, or Mike Licona, or William Lane Craig, don't. There's some of them that have a better understanding of it, but the arguments they present don't satisfy those conditions. And that's why we need your support on Patreon, because we have job security here.
For a show that's whose whole purpose is to get rid of the show, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be around a while.
One of these days, I hope the world gets to a place where there's
to
no need for the show, but as is evident today and every other day, we're not there yet.